I was right in the middle of my beach vacation when my daughter-in-law called me. She said, "We know this beach condo is yours, but we want to be alone with my parents, so you need to go to a hotel." I replied, "Understood." And then I made my final move. What happened an hour later had her parents calling me, begging for their daughter to divorce my son. Because when Harper thought she had humiliated me for the last time, she didn't know I already held everything I needed to destroy the castle of lies she had built. It was a Friday afternoon. I was on the balcony of my oceanfront condo, feeling the salty breeze caress my face, when my phone rang. Harper's name lit up the screen. I had been enjoying my annual vacation for barely 2 days, time off I had earned after working tirelessly all year. At 64, this condo was my greatest pride, the result of 3 decades of sacrificing every dollar, every moment of rest, every little luxury. I answered, expecting a polite greeting, maybe a question about the weather. But what I heard was something completely different. "Barbara, I need to speak with you about the apartment." Her voice sounded firm, almost authoritarian, without a trace of warmth. "My parents just arrived unexpectedly, and they want to spend a few days here at the beach. You know how they are. They need their space, their privacy. So, it would be best if you went to a hotel for a few days. Don't worry, it's only 5 or 6 days. We'll take care of everything here." The sound of the waves faded into the background. For a moment, I thought I had misheard. I looked around the balcony, the flower pots I had planted myself, the wrought iron table I bought at an antique fair, the ivory curtains I had sewn with my own hands. Every object in this place held my sweat, my tears, my history. "Excuse me?" I managed to articulate. "Barbara, don't make this difficult. Catherine and Richard are used to a certain level of comfort. They can't just stay at any random hotel, and this condo is perfect. Besides, you can stay anywhere simpler. You're not that demanding. I already spoke with Caleb, and he agrees. It's best for everyone." Every word was a slap in the face. She wasn't asking, she wasn't requesting a favor, she was ordering. In my apartment, the one I bought with the money I earned scrubbing other people's toilets while she was still in college, spending her parents' money. "Harper, this is my condo. I came here to rest." I heard a short laugh, almost a snort. "Barbara, let's be realistic. This place will eventually belong to Caleb anyway, meaning it'll be ours. We're being the family here. My parents want to get to know the property better, see the potential it has. Richard is an architect, you know, and he has wonderful ideas for remodeling. You could take this opportunity to go to that budget motel off the highway. I saw they have good deals." Something inside me broke, not with explosive rage, but with a cold, crystalline clarity. In that instant, holding the phone and staring at the infinite horizon of the ocean, I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg for respect from someone who clearly would never have it for me. I was going to play her own game, but better. "Understood. Harper, give me an hour to pack my things." There was a surprised silence on the other end. She probably expected resistance, tears, pleading. My calm threw her off. "Oh, well, perfect then. I appreciate you being reasonable. I'll text you when you can come back." She hung up without saying goodbye. I stood there on the balcony, phone in hand, listening to the waves again. But now, every sound was different. The water hitting the rocks sounded like a war drum. The wind whistling through the palm trees sounded like a battle cry. And I, Barbara, the woman who had endured humiliations for 3 years with a polite smile, was about to teach my daughter-in-law the most important lesson of her life. I walked into the apartment and moved slowly through each room. The living room with its comfortable furniture, chosen piece by piece. The dining room where I imagined so many happy family dinners. The kitchen where I prepared Caleb's favorite meals every time he visited. The 2 bedrooms with their beds dressed in Egyptian cotton sheets I bought at a special sale. All of this was mine. Only mine. And no one, absolutely no one, was going to snatch it from me with a simple phone call. I pulled my suitcase from the closet and started packing a few things. But my mind was already working on something much more important. I grabbed my phone and dialed a number I had saved for months. Patrick, my attorney and friend of 20 years, answered on the second ring. "Barbara, what a surprise. How's the vacation? Patrick, I need your help, and I need this to stay between us. I told him everything. Every detail of the call, every poisonous word from Harper, every insinuation that the apartment would eventually be hers. Patrick listened in silence, and when I finished, I could hear his heavy breathing on the other end of the line. That woman is completely out of line. Barbara, that condo is in your name. No one can kick you out of your own property. I know, but I want this to turn into a lesson they never forget. I need you to prepare some documents, and I need you to come here tomorrow morning. We spent the next hour discussing details, strategies, and legal documents. Every word we exchanged was another piece of the puzzle I was assembling. When I hung up, a small but determined smile crossed my face. Harper had made the biggest mistake of her life by underestimating me. I finished packing only the essentials and called a cab. While I waited at the building's entrance with my suitcase, I saw a luxury SUV pull up. It was Harper, accompanied by Caleb and two older people I assumed were her parents. Catherine stepped out of the car wearing enormous sunglasses and an emerald green dress that probably cost more than my rent did when I was young. Richard wore casual but clearly expensive clothes, with that air of superiority found in people used to having everything done their way. "Barbara!" Harper exclaimed with a fake, exaggerated smile. "So glad you're already ready. Look, these are my parents, Catherine and Richard." Catherine looked me up and down with a cold assessment. She didn't even extend her hand. "A pleasure," she said in a tone that indicated the exact opposite. "Harper has told us so much about this place. It has potential, although it needs some urgent updates." Richard nodded while observing the building's facade with critical eyes, as if he were already calculating renovation costs. "Yes, definitely needs modernizing. These balconies are outdated, and the exterior paint color is too old-fashioned. But the location is excellent, I have to admit." Caleb was behind them, hands in his pockets, looking at the ground. "My son, my only son, the boy I raised alone after his father abandoned us, the young man whose college tuition I paid for by working double shifts, couldn't even look me in the eye." When he finally looked up, he tried to force an awkward smile. "Mom, it's just a few days. You understand, right? It's important to Harper." Those words hurt more than everything Harper had said on the phone. My own son choosing his father-in-law's comfort over his mother. I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded calmly. I wasn't going to give them the show of watching me crumble. "Of course, son. Enjoy your stay." I took my suitcase and got into the taxi that had just arrived. As the car pulled away, I saw them enter the building as if they owned it, Catherine already talking animatedly about the changes she would make to the decor. I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I did, the rage I was containing with all my strength might explode and ruin the entire plan I had begun to weave. The motel where I checked in was 20 minutes away, near the highway, just as Harper had suggested with such disdain. It was a simple but clean place, with small rooms and an air conditioner that rattled all night. I sat on the narrow bed and looked around. The walls were a washed-out beige. There was a water stain on the ceiling, and the view from the window looked out onto a parking lot with cracks in the pavement. This was the place my daughter-in-law considered appropriate for me, while she and her family settled into the condo I had bought with my blood and sacrifice. I pulled out my laptop and started reviewing documents. Patrick had emailed me some forms I needed to check. But before diving into the legalities, I opened social media. I wanted to know exactly what was happening in my apartment. I didn't have to search long. Harper had already posted a photo on the terrace, a glass of wine in hand, and the ocean in the background. The caption read, "Finally, at our beach sanctuary, family reunited in paradise. Soon, we'll make this place truly spectacular. Number, home, number, blessed. Our sanctuary, ours." The rush of adrenaline I felt was so intense, I had to close the laptop and breathe deeply. Every fiber of my being wanted to call her, scream at her, tell her exactly what I thought. But no, that was what an impulsive person would do. I wasn't impulsive. I was patient, and patience, combined with the right strategy, was much more powerful than any explosion of anger. I barely slept that night. Images kept popping up on my social media feeds. Catherine posing in my living room, Richard toasting on my terrace, Harper showing off the kitchen as if she were a proud hostess showing off her property. In one of the stories, I heard Richard's voice in the background. Here we could knock down this wall and do a much more modern, open concept. And that ceramic tile floor has to go. Definitely. They were planning to remodel my apartment. Without my permission. Without even asking me. The audacity was so great, it almost seemed unreal. I took screenshots of everything. Every photo, every comment, every story. Everything would be documented. Early the next morning, my phone rang. It was Patrick. "Good morning, Barbara. I have everything ready. When do you want me to head over?" "Today. But wait for my signal. I need something else to happen first." I spent the morning in that mediocre motel, drinking instant coffee and waiting. I knew Harper wouldn't be able to contain herself. People like her never can. They need constant validation. They need to brag. They need to feel superior. And sure enough, around noon, I received a text message from her. "Barbara, Catherine wants to know if you have the bills for the recent utilities for the condo. We also need the Wi-Fi and alarm passwords. By the way, we found some of your old stuff in the master bedroom closet. We moved it to the storage closet so it wouldn't be in the way. Hope you don't mind." My things, in the storage closet, as if they were trash that needed to be hidden. I took a deep breath and replied with the same chilling calm I had maintained from the start. "Sure, Harper. I'll email everything to you. Do you need anything else?" "No, that's fine for now. Oh, and don't worry about coming back soon. My parents are so in love with the place that they'll probably stay the whole week. Maybe 2. We'll see." 2 weeks. They wanted me to stay out of my own apartment for 2 weeks. My blood was boiling, but my fingers typed with absolute serenity. Understood. Enjoy. I immediately called Patrick. "It's time. Come tomorrow at 10 in the morning, and bring everything we discussed." That afternoon, I went for a walk on the public beach near the motel. It wasn't as beautiful as the beach in front of my condo. It was more crowded, noisier, with vendors shouting about their products. I sat on the sand and watched the sea. I had worked so hard all my life, since I was 16, when I had to leave school to help my sick mother. Since I was 20, when I got pregnant and Caleb's father disappeared like smoke. Since I was 25, when I started cleaning houses during the day and caring for the sick at night to give my son a better life. Every dollar I earned was through honest effort, dignity, and sacrifice. And now, a woman who had never truly worked a day in her life, who had always lived on her parents' money, who married my son precisely because she saw stability and assets, intended to take away the only thing that was truly mine, not out of necessity, not because she was desperate, but out of pure whim, out of pure arrogance, out of pure contempt for someone she considered inferior. An older lady sat near me on the sand. She wore a large straw hat and had that tanned skin of someone who has spent a lifetime under the sun. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" she said with a kind smile. "Yes, it is," I replied, though inside I felt like I was in the middle of a storm. "On vacation?" The question made me laugh bitterly. Something like that. She must have noticed something in my expression because her smile turned more sympathetic. Sometimes the best vacations aren't the ones we plan, but the ones that force us to take important decisions. I don't know if it was intuition or simple coincidence, but her words resonated with me with a strange force. She was right. This wasn't the vacation I had planned, but it was definitely forcing me to make the most important decision of the last few years. The decision to never again allow anyone to treat me as if I were invisible, disposable, less than them. That night, back in my hotel room, I received a video call from my cousin Amy, who lived in another city and with whom I had always maintained a close relationship. "Barbara, how was your vacation? You look tired," Amy said as soon as her face appeared on the screen. She had that ability to read my emotions even through a camera. I couldn't take it anymore. I told her everything, every detail, every humiliation, every arrogant message. Amy listened in silence, and as my story progressed, her expression went from surprise to absolute anger. "Are you telling me they kicked you out of your own condo? And Caleb did nothing?" "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Barbara, that woman is robbing you of your life right in front of your eyes, and the worst part is that your son is allowing it." Her words confirmed what I already knew, but it hurt to admit. Caleb had become a stranger. The boy who hugged me when I came home tired from work, the young man who promised me that one day he would pay me back for everything I had done for him, was now a man asking me to sleep in a cheap motel while his wife played owner of my property. But I have a plan, Amy, and tomorrow everything is going to change. I explained what I had organized with Patrick. When I finished, she smiled with a mixture of pride and satisfaction. That's my cousin. Teach her a lesson she'll never forget. And if you need me to come down there for backup, I'll take the first flight. It won't be necessary, but thank you. I needed to hear a friendly voice. After hanging up, I stared at the ceiling of that mediocre room. Tomorrow would be the day. Tomorrow I would recover my dignity, my space, my life. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but my mind wouldn't stop reviewing every detail of the plan. There could be no mistakes. Everything had to be perfect. The morning arrived with a clear sky and humid heat that clung to the skin. I dressed with care. I chose a simple but elegant outfit, a pearl gray dress that made me look serious and respectable. I applied light makeup and tied my hair in a low bun. I wanted to look like what I was, a dignified woman, the owner of her property, not someone who could be trampled on. At 9:30, Patrick called me. I'm pulling up to your hotel. Ready. More than ready. I went down with my suitcase. Patrick was waiting in his car, a discreet but imposing black sedan. In the back seat lay a leather briefcase and a thick folder of documents. He looked at me with a serious but supportive expression. Barbara, this is going to work. Trust me. I trust you. Let's go. The ride back to my condo was silent. I looked out the window, watching the streets, the shops, the restaurants pass by. Everything remained the same as always, but I had changed. The Barbara who left that apartment 2 days ago was a tired woman, used to being compliant, avoiding conflict. The Barbara returning now was different. There was a strength inside me I hadn't recognized before, a cold and clear determination. When we arrived at the building, Patrick took out his phone. Before we go up, I need you to authorize something. I'm going to record everything that happens up there. It's important to have evidence of their reactions, of what they say. You have my consent. Totally. We went up in the elevator in silence. My heart was beating fast, but my hands were steady. When we reached the floor, I could hear laughter and music coming from my apartment. They were having a party, in my house, without my permission. The audacity had no limits. I rang the doorbell. The music stopped, and I heard footsteps approaching. Harper opened the door with a mimosa glass in her hand, dressed in a coral beach outfit, her hair loose and wet as if she had just come out of the building's pool. Her expression of surprise upon seeing me was immediate. Barbara? What are you doing here? We didn't expect you back so soon. Also, who is he? My attorney, I replied with a calm but firm voice. Patrick. Meet Harper, my daughter-in-law. The word attorney had an immediate effect. Harper's smile vanished. Behind her, Catherine and Richard appeared, clearly interrupted in the middle of their celebration. Caleb was sitting on the sofa, a beer in hand and an expression of total confusion. Attorney? Barbara, what is going on? This is ridiculous, Harper said, but her voice didn't sound so sure anymore. Can we come in? It is my apartment. After all, I didn't wait for an answer. I simply walked inside, and Patrick followed me. The place was unrecognizable. They had moved furniture. There were bottles of alcohol on my coffee table, dirty dishes in the kitchen, towels thrown on my armchairs. On the wall, there were swatches where they had clearly been testing paint colors. My blood boiled, but I maintained my composure. Catherine approached with that haughty attitude that seemed to be her natural state. Ma'am, I don't know what you intend with this little number, but we are in the middle of a family gathering. If you have a problem, you can discuss it with Harper another time. Patrick smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Ma'am, I recommend you sit down. All of you. What I have to say concerns everyone, especially you and your husband. Richard stood up, puffing out his chest. You have no right to come here giving orders. This is a family matter. You're right. It is a family matter. That's why I'm here, I said, my voice coming out stronger than I expected. This condo is mine. It is in my name. I bought it with my money. And you are here without my authorization, having altered my property without my consent. Harper laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. Barbara, don't be dramatic. I already told you that this will eventually belong to Caleb. Meaning, ours. We're just getting a little ahead of things. Getting ahead? I repeated slowly. Getting ahead of what exactly? There was an uncomfortable silence. Harper looked at her parents, then at Caleb, seeking support. Caleb remained on the sofa, pale, saying nothing. Patrick opened his briefcase and took out several documents. I have here the deed to this condo. As you can see, the sole owner is Mrs. Barbara. There is no document indicating a future transfer, promised donation, or any other legal agreement giving you rights over this property. Catherine frowned. Wait, what? Harper told us Barbara had promised to transfer the condo when they got married, that it was part of the family agreement. The silence that followed was deafening. Harper turned pale. I felt a cold satisfaction run down my spine. There it was, the first crack in her castle of lies. I promised that? I asked slowly, looking directly at Harper. Mom, you said. At Christmas dinner. You mentioned that. Harper stammered, trying to construct a justification on the fly. I never said such a thing. Never. And you know it. Richard looked confused now, staring at his daughter. Harper, you told us specifically that this place was practically yours, that Barbara only kept it in her name for tax purposes, but that the agreement was clear. Well, not exactly like that, Dad. It's complicated. It's not complicated, Patrick intervened. It's simple. Your daughter lied. And not only that, I also have screenshots here of social media posts where you refer to this apartment as our sanctuary, make remodeling plans without the owner's authorization, and basically behave like owners of a property that does not belong to you. He showed his tablet with all the evidence I had compiled. The photos, the comments, the stories. Everything was there, in black and white. Catherine took the tablet from Patrick's hands and started scrolling through the images. Her expression changed from confusion to disbelief, and then to something that looked like shame mixed with fury. Richard looked over her shoulder, and with every image they passed, his jaw tightened more. Harper, what the hell is this? Richard's voice sounded deep and dangerous. You said this place was practically yours. Dad, I was trying to make you feel comfortable. Barbara had always insinuated that. I never insinuated anything. My voice came out louder than I intended. Years of contained humiliations finally finding an exit. For 3 years, I have been nothing but kind to you, Harper. I welcomed you into my family with open arms. I accepted every snide comment about my clothes, my job, my life. I endured you treating me like I was your maid every time you came to visit. But this crossed every line. Caleb finally stood up. Mom, wait. Harper, what are they talking about? You told your parents the condo was ours? Caleb, you know you'll eventually inherit everything from your mother. I was just practicing. Practicing? I repeated with a bitter laugh. Kicking me out of my own house is practicing? Telling me to go to a cheap motel while you party on my property is practicing? Patrick pulled another document from his briefcase. There's more. During these 2 days, I conducted a little investigation. Harper, you told your family that Barbara had financial problems, and that was why you decided to help her by taking over the condo. Harper's eyes widened like saucers. She had forgotten that Patrick had contacts everywhere, that he was meticulous and exhaustive in his work. I found messages in a family group chat where you mentioned that poor Barbara can no longer maintain the apartment and that it would be better if more capable people handled it. You also suggested she had mental health issues and was making irrational decisions. That is a lie, I shouted, feeling angry tears burn my eyes. Mental health issues? That's what you told them? Catherine dropped the tablet onto the sofa and turned to her daughter with an expression I had never seen on her. It was pure contempt. Harper Marie, did you do that? You invented that this woman was sick? Mom, I just wanted you to understand that we needed to take control of the situation before. Before what? Richard interrupted. Before the legitimate owner could enjoy her own property? My God. Harper, what have you become? Caleb was in shock, looking at his wife as if she were a stranger. Harper, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't lie to your family about my mother. Caleb, you don't understand. Your mother is old. She doesn't need a beach condo. We are young. We can make much better use of this. Besides, what is wrong with planning for the future? Old? I repeated, and that word hurt more than anything else she had said. I am 64. Harper, I am not dead. I am not a hindrance that needs to be removed. I am a woman who worked her entire life to have something of her own, something no one could take from me. And it turns out I was wrong, because you were planning exactly that, Patrick continued. Relentless. I also have documentation that you attempted to contact a notary 3 days ago, inquiring about procedures for property transfer. The notary, fortunately, is a friend of mine, and informed me immediately. You told him you were the new owners and needed to update the paperwork. That was too much even for Caleb. His face went from shock to fury in seconds. You tried to forge ownership documents? Harper, that is fraud. That is a felony. We weren't going to forge anything. We were just asking how the process worked. There is nothing illegal about asking questions. Catherine collapsed into a chair, covering her face with her hands. Richard paced back and forth, clearly processing the magnitude of what he was discovering. When he finally spoke, his voice trembled. Mrs. Barbara, I don't have words to express my shame. My wife and I came here believing this place was practically our daughter's. She told us you had agreed to sign it over, that it was a family agreement. She even told us you preferred staying in a hotel because the apartment brought back painful memories of your late husband. My husband abandoned me when Caleb was 2, I said coldly. I don't have a late husband. That is another lie. Catherine lifted her head, tears streaming through her perfectly applied makeup. My God, Harper, what did you do? How could you do this? Because I wanted something better for us. Mom, is it so hard to understand? Caleb earns well, but not enough to own a property like this. His mother has it and barely uses it, 2 weeks a year. That's it. Why should it sit empty the rest of the time when we could enjoy it? Because it is not yours, I said with a firm voice. It's that simple. It isn't yours. It never was. It never will be. Patrick pulled out another document. Now, to the important matter. I have here a legal notice for immediate eviction. You have exactly 2 hours to gather your belongings and vacate this property. If you do not, we will proceed with formal charges for trespassing and, potentially, attempted fraud. That is ridiculous, Harper screamed. Caleb, say something. She is your mother. She can't do this to us. But Caleb said nothing. He stood there, looking at her with a mix of disappointment and pain that I recognized immediately. It was the same expression I had been forced to hide for years, the expression of someone finally seeing the truth they had been denying. Catherine stood up with dignity, despite the tears. We don't need 2 hours. Richard, gather our things. We are leaving right now. She turned to me with an expression of sincere contrition. Mrs. Barbara, I apologize with all my heart. If I had known the truth, I never would have accepted my daughter's invitation. This is unforgivable. Mom, what are you doing? We can't just leave. Harper was on the verge of panic. Yes, we can. And we will. Now, Richard spoke with a firmness that allowed no argument. Your mother and I aren't going to be accomplices to this. This is not how we raised you. They began gathering their suitcases from the master bedroom, my bedroom, where they had been sleeping in my bed. Harper followed him, pleading, trying to justify the unjustifiable. Caleb remained motionless, like a statue, processing everything. Patrick approached me and spoke in a low voice. Are you okay? Yes. For the first time in a long time, I am okay. Catherine and Richard came out with their suitcases, pausing briefly in front of me. Catherine took my hand in hers. I swear to you we knew nothing. If there is anything we can do to make up for this horror, please tell us. Just take your daughter with you, I replied calmly. When they left, the apartment fell into a heavy silence. Only Patrick, Caleb, Harper, and I remained. Harper looked at me with a mixture of hate and desperation. Caleb looked at the floor. I looked at everything they had done to my home, the mess, the disrespect, the violation of my most intimate space. Harper, you have to leave too, I said finally. Caleb, please, you can't allow this. I am your wife. Caleb looked up and, for the first time in years, I saw my real son behind his eyes. I think I need to be alone for a while. Harper. A long while. Caleb's words fell like stones in still water. Harper took a step back, her face transforming into a mask of absolute disbelief. For a moment, No one moved. The sound of waves crashing against the rocks outside was the only thing filling the crushing silence. What does that mean, Caleb? Alone for a while? Harper's voice trembled, but not with sadness, with contained rage. Your mother is exaggerating all of this. I was just trying to secure our future. Is that so terrible? You lied, Caleb said, his voice sounding tired, defeated. You lied to your parents. You lied about my mother. You invented illnesses that don't exist. You planned to steal something that isn't yours. How am I supposed to trust you after this? Trust me? And what about trusting your mother? She brought a lawyer, Caleb. A lawyer, like we were criminals. This is a family situation, and she turned it into a legal circus. Patrick stepped forward. Ma'am, I suggest you gather your belongings. The clock is ticking. Harper looked at me with a hatred so pure I could almost physically feel it. This isn't going to end like this. You are a bitter old woman who can't stand seeing other people happy. You probably planned all this from the beginning, just waiting for an excuse to destroy my marriage. Your marriage is destroying itself, Harper. I didn't have to do anything but tell the truth. The truth, she sneered. Your truth is that you can't let go of your son. You've always been one of those toxic mothers who won't let their children grow up. That's why Caleb's father left you. He was probably sick of your control. The blow was low, and she knew it. She wanted to hurt me. She wanted to make me explode. She wanted me to lose my composure so she could use it against me. But I had spent 3 years watching her, learning her tactics, seeing how she manipulated every situation to her favor. I wasn't going to fall for her game. My relationship with Caleb's father is none of your business, I replied with a steady voice. And my relationship with my son has never been the problem. The problem is that you thought you could steal from me, humiliate me, and get away with it because you assumed I was too weak to defend myself. I wasn't stealing from you. It was just a matter of time before this place was ours anyway. Matter of time, I repeated slowly. Were you waiting for me to die, Harper? Is that it? Were you planning my funeral while I was still alive? The silence that followed was deafening. Even Harper seemed to realize she had revealed too much. Caleb looked at her, horrified. Harper, my God, is that what you were thinking? No, Caleb, older people eventually need help. I was just doing a dry run for the future. Your mother isn't going to live forever. But I am alive now, I said, and my voice came out stronger than it had sounded in years. I am alive, I am 64, I am perfectly healthy, and I plan to enjoy my condo for many more years. And if one day I decide to leave it to someone, you can be absolutely sure it won't be to you. Harper's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of regret. They were tears of frustration, of rage at seeing her plan completely collapse. She turned to Caleb with desperation. Caleb, if you love me, if our marriage means anything to you, tell your mother to stop this. We can fix it. I can apologize. We can start over. Caleb closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them, there was something different in them, a clarity I hadn't seen in a long time. Harper, for the last 3 years, I've watched how you treated my mother. The little cruelties, the hurtful comments disguised as jokes, the hints about her age, her clothes, her job. I told myself I was exaggerating, that it was just personality differences. But it wasn't that, was it? You really despised her. Caleb, I never. Yes, you did. And the worst part is that I let you. I stayed quiet because I didn't want conflict, because I wanted to believe everything was fine, because it was easier to ignore the problem than face it. But this thing you did, I can't ignore it. I can't pretend it didn't happen. Harper changed tactics instantly, her expression transforming into calculated vulnerability. Caleb, honey, I'm pregnant. The world stopped. Patrick looked at me sideways. Caleb stood frozen. I felt the ground move beneath my feet. A baby, a grandchild. That changed everything, didn't it? What? Caleb could barely articulate the word. I was going to tell you this week. I wanted it to be a special surprise here at the beach. I'm 6 weeks along. That's why I wanted this place to be ours, Caleb. Because I want our child to grow up coming here, making memories here. I wanted to secure their future. Tears ran down her face now, and they looked genuine. Caleb stepped toward her, confused, clearly torn between the joy of the news and the horror of everything he had discovered. I stood still, processing. Was it true, or was it another manipulation? Patrick, always professional, spoke carefully. "Ma'am, if you are pregnant, that does not change the fact that you committed acts constituting trespassing and defamation. A baby is not a license for abuse. It's not abuse to want something better for my family." Harper sobbed, clinging to Caleb. "Barbara, if you were ever a mother, if you ever loved your son, you should understand this. Everything I did was out of love." "Love doesn't justify cruelty," I replied, though my voice sounded less firm than before. "Love doesn't justify lies, and it definitely doesn't justify trying to steal what belongs to someone else." Caleb looked at Harper with a mix of emotions impossible to decipher. "Is it true? Are you really pregnant?" "Yes. I have the test in my purse. I was going to show you tomorrow at a special breakfast I had planned." Of course, she had a test ready. Harper was always prepared, always had a plan B, always knew exactly what to say and when to say it to get what she wanted. But something inside me told me this time was different. This time, even if she was pregnant, that couldn't be an excuse to erase everything she had done. I walked over to my son and looked him straight in the eye. "Caleb, if Harper is pregnant, I will be happy for you. A grandchild is a blessing. But that doesn't mean what she did is right. It doesn't mean you should forget how she treated your mother. And it definitely doesn't mean I should hand over my apartment to her because she's now using a baby as a bargaining chip. Mom, listen to me, son. All your life, I have sacrificed for you. I worked 3 jobs so you could go to college. I sold my car to pay for your last semester. I stayed in a small, old apartment so you could have a good start in life. I never asked you for anything in return because that is what mothers do. But now, the only thing I have, the only thing that is truly mine, someone is trying to take it from me, and that person is your wife." Caleb had tears in his eyes now. "I know, Mom. I know, and I am so sorry. I don't want your apologies. I want you to make a decision. I'm not asking you to choose between her and me. I'm asking you to choose between right and wrong, between honesty and manipulation, between respecting your mother or allowing someone to trample her." Harper interrupted, her voice now desperate. "Caleb, think about our baby. Think about our family. Are you really going to destroy all this over a misunderstanding?" "It is not a misunderstanding," Caleb said finally, and his voice sounded stronger, clearer. "It is a series of deliberate lies. It is cruelty disguised as practicality. It is manipulation." He separated from Harper and walked to the window, looking at the ocean. We all waited in silence, the air so tense it seemed it could break with a sigh. When he finally turned, he had made a decision. "Harper, I'm going to take you to your parents' house. I need time to think, to process all this. If you really are pregnant, we will talk about how to proceed. But right now, I can't even look at you." "Caleb, you can't." "Yes, I can. And I will. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't defend you sooner. I'm sorry I was so blind. I'm sorry for everything." I approached my son and took his hand. It was cold, trembling. "Caleb, you don't need to apologize to me. You just need to learn from this. You need to understand that true love never asks you to betray your values or allow the people you love to be mistreated." Harper let out a frustrated scream. "This is unbelievable. I am pregnant with your child and you are kicking me out? What kind of man are you?" "The kind of man my mother raised to recognize when something is wrong," Caleb replied with a firmness I hadn't heard from him in years. "Gather your things. Now." Harper looked at all of us, searching for some sign of weakness, some crack she could slip through to reverse the situation. But she found nothing. Patrick remained professional and distant. Caleb was determined. And I had exhausted my capacity for being compliant exactly 2 days ago when I received that phone call that changed everything. With sharp, angry movements, Harper began gathering her belongings. She threw clothes into her suitcase without any care, muttering things under her breath that I couldn't fully hear but were clearly not flattering. Every so often she shot me looks full of venom, as if I were the villain of this story, as if I had done something unforgivable by refusing to be trampled. While she packed, her phone rang. It was her mother. Harper answered with a tearful voice, immediately falling into the role of victim. Mom, they're kicking me out. Caleb is choosing his mother over me. Over our baby. Yes, I'm pregnant. No, he doesn't care. His mother has him completely manipulated. I heard Catherine's voice on the other end, though I couldn't distinguish the words. But judging by Harper's expression, she wasn't receiving the support she expected. Her face went from self-pity to indignation. What do you mean you understand him? Mom, I am your daughter. I am pregnant and they are treating me like a criminal. There was a pause. No, I didn't invent the pregnancy. It's real, but that doesn't mean everything else. Mom, you can't be on her side. You can't. Harper hung up the phone with such force I was surprised the screen didn't shatter. Her eyes were red, her makeup smeared, her hair messy. She no longer looked like the perfect, controlled woman she always projected. Now she looked exactly like what she was, someone whose masks had fallen off one by one. My own mother, she muttered bitterly. My own mother is on your side. You know what, Barbara? You win. You have your precious condo. I hope it makes you very happy when you're here alone, old and bitter, with no one visiting you, never knowing your grandchild. Those words were designed to hurt me, to plant a seed of doubt and guilt. But I had spent 2 days in a mediocre motel reflecting on my life, my decisions, and what really mattered, and I had come to a very clear conclusion. Harper, if my grandchild grows up thinking it's okay to lie, manipulate, and treat people badly to get what they want, then I prefer not to know them. But something tells me Caleb isn't going to raise his child that way. And if you learn something from all this, maybe there is still hope. Hope, she laughed cruelly. The only hope I have is that one day you understand the damage you caused today. You destroyed a family over a stupid apartment. No, Caleb intervened. You destroyed our trust with your lies. There is a difference. Harper finished packing and dragged her suitcase to the door. Before leaving, she turned one last time. This doesn't end here. I'm going to fight for what is mine. My child deserves an inheritance. Your child deserves a mother who is honest and decent, I replied. Everything else is secondary. The door slammed shut behind her with a bang that made the frame shake. The silence that followed was different from before. This was a silence of relief, of liberation, like when a storm ends and the air smells fresh and clean. Caleb collapsed onto the sofa, covering his face with his hands. My God, Mom, what did I just do? What if she really is pregnant? What if I just ruined my child's life? I sat next to him and put my arm around his shoulders, just like when he was a boy and had nightmares. You didn't ruin anything, son. You taught your wife that there are consequences for actions, and if there is a baby, that child will benefit from having a father who knows the difference between right and wrong. Patrick, who had remained discreetly in the background during the entire exchange, finally spoke. Caleb, if you'll allow me some professional advice, I suggest you request verifiable medical proof of the pregnancy. I'm not saying your wife is lying, but given the pattern of behavior we've seen, it is prudent to confirm facts before making major decisions. Caleb nodded slowly. You're right. God, at what moment did my life turn into this? The moment you chose to ignore the red flags because it was more comfortable, I replied gently. We all make that mistake, son. The important thing is that you finally opened your eyes. Patrick began packing his documents into his briefcase. Barbara, I'll leave you a copy of everything. If Harper attempts any legal action, we have enough evidence to defend you. I also recommend you change the locks immediately and install security cameras. Cameras? Do you think that's necessary? After what we've seen today, I think it's essential. Harper doesn't seem like someone who accepts defeat easily. He was right. I had seen that look in her eyes before she left. It wasn't acceptance, it was planning. She was calculating her next move even as she dragged her suitcase out. After Patrick left, Caleb and I stayed in the apartment, now stained with the memories of the last few hours. There were dirty dishes to clean, furniture to move back, paint swatches to scrub off walls. But more than that, there was a mother-son relationship that needed to be repaired. Mom, I want you to know something, Caleb said after a long silence. During these 3 years, I saw how she treated you. I saw the comments, the looks, the little cruelties, and I did nothing because I told myself you were exaggerating, that it was just personality differences. But the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that if I defended my opinion, if I set boundaries, she would leave me. And after so many years alone, after so many failed relationships, when I finally found someone who seemed perfect, I didn't want to lose her. So I convinced myself the problems were small, manageable, that with time, things would improve. Things don't improve when the foundation is rotten, son. They only become more unstable until everything collapses. I know that now, and I am so sorry I failed you. I'm sorry I wasn't the son you deserved. I took his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. Caleb, you were exactly the son I raised. A good man who wants to believe the best in people. That isn't a weakness, it's a virtue. The problem isn't that you trusted Harper. The problem is that she abused that trust. What do I do now, Mom? If she really is pregnant, how do I handle this? You can't just walk away from your child. You don't have to walk away, but you also don't have to allow yourself to be manipulated. Being a good father doesn't mean allowing the mother of your child to mistreat you or your family. It means setting healthy boundaries and teaching your child, by your example, what mutual respect looks like. We spent the rest of the afternoon cleaning the apartment together. Every surface we wiped, every object we returned to its place felt symbolic. We were restoring not just the physical space, but something deeper. We were rebuilding the trust, the respect, the connection that had slowly eroded over 3 years. When the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet, we stepped out onto the balcony. The ocean stretched infinite before us, waves crashing with their eternal rhythm, indifferent to human drama. You know what the saddest part of all this is, Mom? Caleb said, staring at the horizon. That I really loved her. Or at least I loved the person I thought she was. Now I wonder if I ever really knew her, or if I just saw what she wanted me to see. Probably a little of both, I replied softly. People are complex. Harper isn't completely evil, but she has a worrying capacity to justify her actions regardless of who she hurts. That isn't love, son. That is selfishness disguised as ambition. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Catherine. Barbara, I need to talk to you. Can we meet tomorrow? Richard and I want to apologize properly, and there are things you need to know about Harper. I showed the message to Caleb. He sighed deeply. Her own parents are ashamed. That says a lot. Do you think I should meet with them? Yes. They deserve the chance to explain themselves, and they might have information that could be useful, I replied to Catherine, agreeing to meet the next day at a coffee shop downtown. That night, Caleb slept in the second bedroom of the condo. Before going to bed, he came to my room and hugged me in a way he hadn't since he was a teenager. Thanks for not giving up, Mom. Thanks for fighting. I will always fight for what is right, son. I taught you that too. Morning came with a clear and bright sky. I dressed carefully, choosing a simple but smart beige suit that made me feel respectable and serious. Caleb decided to stay at the apartment, saying he needed time to think. I left him fresh coffee and some fruit before heading out. The coffee shop was a cozy place with wooden tables and plants hanging from the windows. Catherine and Richard were already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table. Catherine looked different without her armor of perfect makeup and designer clothes. She wore a simple cream dress and barely a touch of mascara. Richard wore a casual shirt and looked like he had aged 10 years since the day before. Barbara, thank you for coming, Catherine said, standing up. To my surprise, she hugged me. It wasn't a formal, rigid hug, but a genuine one, full of held-back emotion. You have no idea how sorry we are for what happened. We sat down, and a waitress took our order. No one spoke until they brought our coffees. It was Richard who finally broke the silence. Barbara, Catherine, and I spent all night talking. We reviewed old messages, conversations, situations that didn't seem strange at the time, but now, with this new perspective, reveal a very worrying pattern. What kind of pattern? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Catherine pulled out her phone and started showing me screenshots. 2 years ago, when Harper and Caleb had been married for barely a year, she asked us for money for a major investment. She said Caleb had found an incredible business opportunity but needed initial capital. We transferred $50,000. My God, yes. Later we discovered, by chance, that there was no investment. Harper had used the money to buy designer clothes, beauty treatments, and a new car. When we confronted her, she cried. She said she was under a lot of pressure trying to fit into Caleb's social circles, that she needed to project a certain image. She made us feel guilty for questioning her. Richard continued. 6 months ago, she told us Caleb was having trouble at work, that he was likely going to be fired and they needed help with the mortgage. We gave her another $30,000. 2 weeks ago, we found out, through a mutual friend, that Caleb had just received a promotion and a considerable raise. He had never been at risk of losing his job. Does Caleb know about this? I asked, feeling indignation growing in my chest. We don't think he knows. And that is the problem. Harper is incredibly skilled at compartmentalizing her life. She tells us different things, tells Caleb different things, probably tells you different things too. She builds separate narratives and keeps them all running simultaneously. Catherine took my hand across the table. Barbara, when she told us you had promised to transfer the condo, we had no reason to doubt. Our daughter has always been ambitious, sometimes too much, but we never thought she was capable of lying so blatantly. Now we wonder how many other lies we've believed over the years. Why are you telling me all this? I asked, though I appreciated the honesty. Because you need to know who you are dealing with, Richard said with a grave voice. If Harper really is pregnant, she is going to use that baby as a weapon. She will manipulate the situation in every possible way to get what she wants. And what she wants is that condo. She is obsessed with it. Obsessed. Catherine nodded. Since the first time she saw it, she hasn't stopped talking about it. She showed us photos constantly. She talked about how she would remodel it, the parties she would organize there. She even went as far as telling us she was considering turning it into a vacation rental to generate passive income. All this while telling you she appreciated it as a family place. The pieces were beginning to fit in ways that churned my stomach. So it was never about spending time as a family. It was about possession. Exactly. And when she saw she wasn't going to get it the way she planned, she decided to force the situation, inviting us without telling you, kicking you out to a hotel. It was all calculated. She wanted to establish possession, make you get used to the idea that the condo was hers. But she failed, I said with a small, bitter smile, because she underestimated my will to defend myself. And thank God you did, Catherine said with emotion. Barbara, if you hadn't taken action, if you had allowed this to continue, she eventually would have found a way to take it from you legally. I am sure of it. Richard leaned forward. There is something else you should know. Harper has a history of similar behavior. In college, she convinced a roommate to lend her money for a family emergency. She never paid it back. Later, there was an incident with a close friend's boyfriend. Harper always denied any responsibility, but the friendship ended explosively. Why didn't you ever intervene? I asked, trying not to sound accusatory, but needing to understand. Catherine had tears in her eyes. Because she is our daughter. Because we wanted to believe they were misunderstandings, that people judged her wrong, that with maturity she would change. Because it is easier to make excuses than to face the truth that your daughter has a serious character flaw. But we can't keep doing it, Richard added firmly. Especially if there is going to be a grandchild involved. That child deserves to grow up in an environment of honesty, not constant manipulation. Do you think she is really pregnant? I asked. Catherine and Richard exchanged a long, meaningful look. Finally, she spoke. We don't know. Harper called last night saying she was pregnant, but when we asked her to show us medical documentation, she got defensive. She said she didn't have to prove anything to us, that we were her parents and should believe her. That is what worries us, Richard continued. If she really were pregnant and excited about it, wouldn't she want to share the ultrasound? The lab results? The fact that she resists showing evidence makes us suspicious. My God, I whispered. Do you think she would invent a pregnancy? After everything we've discovered, we don't rule anything out, Catherine said sadly. That's why we wanted to warn you. If Caleb asks for proof, and it turns out she lied about this too, the situation is going to explode in ways we can't predict. We spent the next hour talking about Harper, about the patterns they had seen, about the red flags they had ignored. With every revelation, I felt more validated in my decision to defend my boundaries, but also sadder for Caleb. My son had built his life with a woman who apparently had been deceiving him from the start. When we finally said goodbye, Catherine hugged me again. Barbara, we want you to know that whatever happens, we are not going to support Harper's behavior. If there is a baby, we want to be part of their life, but not at the cost of allowing our daughter to continue hurting good people. I appreciate your honesty, I replied sincerely. And I'm sorry you are going through this. Not more than we are, Richard said. Raising a child is the hardest thing in the world. Sometimes, even when you do everything right, things go wrong. But the important thing is to recognize it and not be complicit. I returned to the condo with my head spinning. Caleb was on the terrace, talking on the phone. When he saw me, he quickly ended the call and came toward me. It was Harper. She wants to meet tomorrow. She says she has something important to show me. His voice trembled slightly. Mom, I'm afraid of what I'm going to find out. I told him everything Catherine and Richard had revealed to me. With every word, I saw my son's expression pass from shock to pain and finally to a somber resignation. Then it's possible she isn't even pregnant, he said finally, his voice barely a whisper. All this time, everything I thought we had was a lie. We don't know yet, son. That's why tomorrow you need to ask her for verifiable medical proof. Not a home pregnancy test, but documentation from a doctor, blood work with dates, something she can't easily fake. And if she refuses, then you will have your answer. That night was one of the longest of my life. I heard Caleb tossing and turning in his room, unable to sleep, processing 3 years of potential lies. I couldn't sleep either. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Harper's face. That perfect mask she had worn for so long and that had finally cracked to reveal something much darker underneath. At 3 a.m, I heard footsteps in the living room. I came out of my room and found Caleb sitting on the sofa, laptop open, reviewing what looked like bank statements. Son? What are you doing? He looked up, and his eyes were red, but not from sleep. He had been crying. Reviewing our finances. Mom, there are withdrawals I don't recognize, large transfers to accounts I don't know. For months, maybe years, Harper has been moving money without telling me. I sat next to him and looked at the screen. Thousands of dollars transferred to different accounts, expenses at luxury stores, payments to people whose names meant nothing to either of us. How much? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Close to $200,000 in the last 2 years. Money I thought we were saving to buy a house, for our future, just disappeared. The magnitude of the betrayal was overwhelming. It wasn't just the condo. It wasn't just the lies to her parents. It was a systematic pattern of financial deception that had been happening right under my son's nose for years. Caleb, you need to speak with a lawyer. Not just about the condo, but for your financial protection. If she is willing to lie about this, what else has she been hiding? I already called Patrick. He's coming early tomorrow, before my meeting with Harper. He says I need to document everything, that we're likely going to need a full audit of our finances. We sat in silence, the sound of the waves being the only thing filling the space between us. After a long while, Caleb spoke with a broken voice. How could I be so stupid, Mom? How did I not see any of this? Why did you trust? Why did you love? Those aren't weaknesses, son. The problem isn't that you trusted, but that she abused that trust in unimaginable ways. But there were signs. They had to be there, and I ignored them all. Harper is very skilled at what she does. She builds lies upon lies, each one propping up the other. It's like a house of cards, so elaborate, it looks solid until someone finally blows on it, and everything collapses. Morning came too fast. Patrick appeared at 8, serious and professional as always, with another briefcase full of documents. He reviewed the bank statements Caleb had found, took notes, asked detailed questions. This is serious, Caleb. Very serious. We are talking potentially about marital fraud. Depending on how these accounts were managed, there could be serious legal implications for Harper. I don't want to destroy her life, Caleb said wearily. I just want the truth, and I want to protect what's left of my future. I understand. But you need to be prepared for the possibility that this goes beyond a simple divorce. If there is a pattern of fraud, the authorities could get involved. At 10 a.m, Caleb left for his meeting with Harper. They had agreed to meet at a public restaurant, a neutral place where they couldn't scream or make dramatic scenes. Patrick gave him clear instructions. Record the conversation if the law allowed. Make no promises, sign nothing, and ask for verifiable medical documentation regarding the supposed pregnancy. I stayed at the apartment, unable to do anything other than pace back and forth, checking the clock every 5 minutes. Amy called to see how I was, and I told her the latest. Barbara, that woman is a sociopath. $200,000? Lying to her own parents? Caleb is lucky this came to light now and not in 10 years, when he would have lost even more. I know, but I can't help feeling bad for him. Seeing your child suffer, no matter how old they are, is agony. But he is suffering from discovering the truth, not from losing Harper. That distinction is important. She was right, of course. Caleb's pain wasn't for the end of his marriage, but for the realization that everything had been an illusion from the start. 2 hours later, I heard the key in the lock. Caleb entered, and his expression said it all. He looked defeated, exhausted, but there was also something else there. A kind of grim clarity. "She isn't pregnant," he said without preamble. "She never was." My breath hitched. Even having suspected the possibility, hearing the confirmation was like receiving a physical blow. "How do you know?" I asked her to show me medical documentation. First she refused, said it was an insult that I didn't believe her. But I insisted. Finally, she admitted she had bought a positive pregnancy test online. Apparently, pregnant women sell them to others who want to trick their partners. The cruelty of that was almost incomprehensible. My God, Caleb. She said she did it because she was desperate, that I was abandoning her and she needed something to make me stay. That if I really loved her, I would understand why she had to lie. That isn't love, son. That is pure manipulation. I know that now. He collapsed onto the sofa. I also asked her about the money, the withdrawals, the transfers. Do you know what she told me? That it was her money because we were married, that she had the right to use it however she wanted, that I was controlling for even questioning her, and the $80,000 she got out of her parents with lies? She said her parents can afford it, that it was money she would eventually inherit anyway. So what did it matter if she received it now or later? She showed not a shred of remorse. Mom, not one. She simply justified every lie, every deception, as if they were completely reasonable decisions. I sat next to him. What are you going to do? Divorce her. Obviously. Patrick is already preparing the documents. He's also going to help me recover what I can of the money she took. But Mom, the scariest part isn't the money or the lies. It's realizing that for 3 years I shared my life with someone I don't know at all. That the woman I loved never really existed. I took his hand. She existed in your imagination, in your hope. You loved the idea of who you thought she was, and there is nothing wrong with that. The mistake was hers, not yours. My phone rang. It was a text from Catherine. Barbara, Harper just arrived at our house in a rage. She says Caleb abandoned her, that you destroyed her marriage. We are trying to calm her down, but she is out of control. Be careful. I showed the message to Caleb. He sighed deeply. I should have guessed she would run to her parents to play the victim. Do you think we should be worried? I don't know. I don't know what she's capable of anymore. As if the universe had been waiting for that question, my phone rang again. This time it was a call. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Barbara? It was a woman's voice I didn't recognize immediately. Yes, who is this? This is Chloe, Harper's sister. I need to warn you about something. Caleb and I looked at each other. He put it on speaker. I'm listening, Chloe. My sister is planning something. She just called me asking me to testify that you promised her the condo, that there is a verbal agreement that can hold up legally. She asked me to lie under oath if necessary. And what did you say? I told her she was crazy, that I wasn't going to perjure myself for her. And then she confessed something else, something you need to know. Harper hired a locksmith 2 weeks ago. She has keys to your apartment, Barbara, copies she made without your permission. The chill I felt in that moment was visceral. What? She was planning to enter when you weren't there. She was going to move into the apartment and establish residency. Her lawyer told her that if she could prove she had lived there for a certain time, she would have rights as an occupant. She planned all this weeks ago, long before you discovered her lies. Caleb looked sick. Chloe, why are you telling us this? Because I love my sister, but I can't be an accomplice to this. What she is doing is wrong, And frankly, I am tired of cleaning up her messes. Harper needs to face the consequences of her actions, even if that means losing her for a while. Thank you for telling us, I said, my mind already working on solutions. Do you know if she plans to do anything soon? Today. She said she was going to wait for Caleb to return to the apartment with his mother, and then she would go with some friends to move in. She was going to make it look like she had every right to be there. I hung up and looked at Caleb. We need to act fast. I'm already dialing Patrick, he said, phone already to his ear. Patrick arrived in record time, accompanied by a locksmith and, to my surprise, 2 police officers. I called some contacts, he explained as we quickly went up to the apartment. If Harper attempts to enter without authorization, we need immediate legal consequences. The locksmith worked efficiently, changing all the locks in less than 30 minutes. The officers checked the building perimeter, spoke with security staff, and left clear instructions that Harper no longer had authorization to enter. Patrick prepared formal documents restricting access to the property. How long do you think it will take her to try? Asked one of the officers. As an answer, my phone buzzed. It was the building's security guard. Mrs. Barbara, there is a young woman here claiming to be your daughter-in-law. She is with 3 other people and several boxes. She says she is moving in. Do I grant her access? No, definitely not. Keep her down there. On our way down, the 5 of us went down together, Caleb, Patrick, the 2 officers, and I. When we reached the lobby, the scene was exactly as Chloe had warned. Harper was there with 2 friends and a man I recognized as her cousin. They had boxes, suitcases, even some potted plants. She had come prepared for a full occupation. Harper's expression when she saw us all get off the elevator was unforgettable. Surprise, then fear, then unbridled fury. What is going on here? Why are there police? Her voice was shrill, hysterical. Ma'am, said one of the officers with a calm but authoritative voice, you do not have authorization from the owner to enter this building. I am family. My husband lives here. Your husband is here, Caleb pointed out with a cold voice, and he is telling you that you do not have permission to enter. Caleb, don't be ridiculous. This is temporary, just until we can talk properly about our marriage. I need a place to stay. You can stay with your parents, I replied firmly, or in a hotel, or anywhere else, but not in my condo. Patrick stepped forward with documents in hand. Miss Harper, I have here a temporary restraining order against you. You cannot approach within 100 yards of this property. We are also aware that you obtained key copies without the owner's authorization, which constitutes a crime. Harper paled. Who told you that? Was it Chloe? My own sister betrayed me. Your sister saved you from committing a major felony, Caleb said. If you had entered that apartment without permission, right now you would be getting arrested. One of Harper's friends touched her arm. Harper, maybe we should go. No, this isn't fair. Barbara is taking everything from me. My marriage, my home, my future. I didn't take anything from you, I replied, and my voice came out calmer than I felt. You never had any of this. You destroyed the marriage with your lies. The home was never yours. And your future? You ruined that all by yourself with your decisions. You are a bitter old woman who can't stand seeing her son happy. The officers intervened before she could continue. Ma'am, you need to leave now. If you do not do so voluntarily, we will have to escort you. Harper looked at us all with pure hate. Her friends were already picking up the boxes, clearly uncomfortable with the entire situation. The cousin was looking at his phone, pretending not to be involved. This doesn't end here, Harper spat. I'm going to hire the best lawyer. I'm going to fight for what belongs to me. Fight for what? Caleb interrupted, and there was steel in his voice. Are you going to invent more lies? Are you going to scam more people? Are you going to fake another pregnancy? Harper, it's over. It's all over. And the only thing I regret is not seeing who you really were 3 years ago. Something in Caleb's tone, in the absolute finality of his words, finally penetrated Harper's armor. I saw her break not with genuine sadness, but with the realization that she had completely lost. Her tears, when they finally came, seemed more from frustration than pain. I hate you all, she whispered before turning around and walking out of the building, followed by her confused friends carrying the boxes that would never reach their destination. The officers stayed a few minutes longer, ensuring Harper had truly left, taking statements, documenting everything. When they finally left, the three of us went back up to the apartment in silence. Once inside, Caleb broke down, not with dramatic tears, but with a deep weariness that seemed to go down to his bones. "It's over. It's really over." "Yes, son. It's over." The following days were a whirlwind of legal activity. Caleb initiated divorce proceedings. Patrick worked tirelessly to track the money Harper had taken. It turned out a significant portion still existed in accounts she had opened in her name, money that could be legally frozen while the divorce was resolved. Catherine and Richard called to apologize once more. They had a brutal conversation with Harper, confronting her about all her lies. She had finally admitted everything, but without showing real remorse, only anger at having been caught. They decided to send her to therapy, but made it clear they weren't going to fund her manipulations anymore. Chloe also called to apologize for her sister. "I always knew Harper had issues, but I never imagined she would go this far. Thanks for not hating her completely." "I don't hate her," I replied honestly. "I feel pity for her. It must be exhausting to live constantly building castles of lies." 3 weeks later, Caleb and I were sitting on the apartment balcony, watching the sunset. The wounds were beginning to heal, slowly but surely. My son had recovered some of his old spark, although now there was a wisdom in his eyes that wasn't there before. "Mom, thanks for not giving up," he said suddenly. "Thanks for fighting when I couldn't. I will always fight for you, son, and I will also fight for myself." That was the most important lesson of all this. What lesson? That being kind doesn't mean being weak. That being compliant isn't the same as being loving. And that, sometimes, the greatest show of self-love is simply saying no. Caleb smiled. A real smile this time. "You know what's ironic? Harper wanted this condo so much, she was willing to destroy everything to get it. And in the end, not only did she not get it, but she lost absolutely everything else." "Greed blinds people," I replied. "It makes them believe they deserve things they never worked to earn. And when they don't get them, they become victims in their own minds." The sun sank into the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The waves continued their eternal rhythm, indifferent to human dramas. And I, Barbara, a 64-year-old woman who had worked her entire life for a piece of peace, had finally found it. Not because I had won a battle, but because I had learned that my voice, my dignity, and my space mattered as much as anyone else's. 2 months later, I received a certified envelope. It was from Harper. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Barbara, I am not going to apologize because I don't believe I did anything wrong, but I want you to know that underestimating you was my biggest mistake. I thought you were weak because you were kind. I thought you were foolish because you were generous. I was wrong. Hope you're happy with your condo. I will find my own way." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. An acknowledgement that the world didn't work the way she thought, that she couldn't simply take what she wanted without consequences. I showed the letter to Caleb. He read it and set it aside with indifference. "She still doesn't understand. Maybe one day she will. Or maybe not. But it isn't our problem anymore." And he was right. It wasn't our problem anymore. We had closed that chapter of our lives. We had learned the lessons we needed to learn, and now it was time to move on. That night, I cooked dinner in my kitchen, in my apartment, surrounded by the peaceful silence that only comes when you have finally defended what is yours. The waves crashed outside, the air smelled of salt and freedom, and for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. Because I had learned that it is never too late to defend your dignity. That age does not make you invisible or disposable, and that sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one everyone underestimated. My name is Barbara. I am 64 years old, and this is my story of how a simple phone call taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Never underestimate a woman who finally decides that enough is enough.